Hi, and welcome to the Mix 6 podcast as part of the Mix UK, the leading digital support service for young people. I'm your host, Ella, and kindly joined by Tom for this episode. I hope that whoever you are, wherever you are, and whatever you're doing, that you're okay. And if not, come and visit us at themix.org.uk or say hi to us on our socials. Visit the Mix UK on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Today, I'm kindly joined by an incredibly talented singer-songwriter and a passionate advocate for celebrating who you are. Somebody who has embraced their identity through the power of music. Please welcome Dylan Holloway. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Ella. What a nice introduction. I should take you everywhere with me.
So tell us a bit about your journey and what brought you into music.
Okay, so a bit about my journey for your listeners. I'm actually a transgender man, and I began my transition about 4 or 5 years ago. But before that, I was known mostly just as a musician. I grew up in a really small town in Cornwall where I didn't understand really how to be different, but I knew I was different. So I looked to find a place that I could feel more like myself, and somewhere that I found was music. So while I was feeling kind of lonely and confused and scared growing up as like a trans person, I didn't even really know what the word trans was, or that people could be sort of, in inverted commas, born in the wrong body. That's how I felt at that time. I was just trying to find an outlet where I could speak about my life without ever having to talk directly to another human being. So I picked up, the guitar and the piano, and I started writing poems and words about how I was feeling and putting it to music. And then I stumbled across my dad's record collection. I found a vinyl of David Bowie, and, he was sort of dressing really femininely, and it was like a confirmation that you could be in the music space and be a bit weird and be celebrated for being yourself. So I was like, that is going to be a place for me. So I ended up sort of pursuing music, moving to London, being in a few different bands, and then being part of a BBC competition and winning a BBC award for songwriting. And now here I am, sort of transitioned and feeling good, and now moving forward, trying to celebrate other people and how they can be themselves too.
That's great, definitely. And congratulations on the award too.
Thank you.
So before we get into the main interview, we have some 6 quick-fire questions to ask. So the first one would be, what's your go-to karaoke song?
Ooh, probably It's Raining Men, just because it's hilarious.
Good choice. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Ooh, probably what is it? Teleportation, like to get to somewhere else really quickly, just be there, something like that.
Instantly. Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, that would be a vibe.
Yeah. Would you rather explore the ocean or explore space?
Oh, I am not going anywhere near the ocean. The ocean is weird. The ocean, we do not belong in the ocean. I've seen some of those weird fish from the bottom, and that they're like, I think, is it true that we've traveled more of space than the sea?
Yeah, I think it's like 8% of the ocean.
Yeah, no, the ocean is weird to me. I mean, space is obviously kind of, you don't really know about space and what's out there, but I mean, it feels safer than what's in the water. And I love swimming, but no.
Would you rather have sweet or savory food?
Savory. Yeah, savory guy. I do have a bit of a sweet tooth, but I love a packet of crisps,
Yeah. What's your favorite movie genre?
I probably a cheeky rom-com. I am actually a bit of a romantic at heart. I do like a nice film, or like a psychological thriller. So you can read what you want about that. Those two things.
Yeah, just grips you. What's your top tip for looking after your mental health?
Top tip for looking after your mental health. I ask myself a lot of questions, and that's kind of what I advise other people to do too. I always ask myself why. Like, I try and get to the bottom of what I'm actually feeling. So if I'm sad, I ask myself why. And then when I realize it's this person that made me feel sad, why? And then it usually develops into some other answer that you didn't really realize it was to begin with. It could have been like a very, very old experience that you had lived through and that you're realizing is resurfacing. So I always try and ask myself why. Because then when you get to the bottom of it, you kind of feel not so in like a tornado anymore.
Definitely. It helps you understand your emotions and work everything out easier. So we're going to jump into the main questions now. So what are the key moments which have made you who you are today?
Okay, key moments who made me who I am today. Well, one of the first ones would have just been watching like Jules Holland on telly as a kid. My parents used to watch that all the time. And I think watching that and seeing musicians play and just there was something about it I was always drawn to. My mum and dad used to watch a lot of music documentaries, and I just found the people so interesting. Like I really resonated with the way that they were telling stories. So that was probably a key moment for me. And then when I like in school, we had musicians come in who were like music teachers with and play their own instrument in like an assembly. And I saw this drummer play the drums, and I was like, oh my god, they are so cool. So that was like a fundamental place because I actually started playing drums before anything else. And I think it was a way for me to just like get some rage out of my body. But I remember seeing all these musicians come into the school and being like, this is my gateway in. And then I had an offer to move to London from a management company who wanted to look after me for my songwriting. But I wasn't finished with my exams. I think I was 17 years old, and I had to make this decision, like, do I stay and do these like final exams and sort of maybe try and find somewhere where I live, something to do where I live, or did I just jump and take this leap of faith? And I decided to jump and move to London, and I didn't ever look back, and I've had the best time since. And then I think meeting my first girlfriend was a big moment, because at that time I was pre-transition, so I just appeared in the world as a woman, and it was actually really hard for me because I knew I was a man and I wanted to date a woman, and so that to me was just like a heteronormative cisgender relationship. But because I was in a female body, people perceived us as gay, which makes total sense. But it used to really confuse me because that's not how I felt about me and my partner. So that was like a key moment in my life, whether it was a good one or a bad one. It taught me a lot about how I felt about myself. And then a later girlfriend, when I told her about the way I was feeling, she was one of the first people that said to me, do you think you're a trans man? And it gave me this whole licensing that like I could actually bring it up to other people. And another key moment was meeting my first ever in-person trans guy at London Pride, which I think is like a phenomenal place. Like all of the prides are, but London Pride is really beautiful. And I met a trans guy in the flesh, and we spoke about his journey, and I instantly knew it was a ride that I wanted to be on, and that was what I was going to do, like researching immediately. And then more recently, the BBC award that I won, and that has shaped me telling more people about my life and my journey as a trans guy and incorporating that into my music. So I think they're like the biggest pillars that I can think of so far.
Thank you for sharing. How has music influenced your mental health and been an element of finding your identity?
Well, music influenced my mental health in two ways. The first way is when I like absorb music, when I listen to music. I think if you're in a certain headspace and then you find a song that really resonates, it makes you feel a bit less alone. So you find a song that kind of describes the way you're feeling, and like, I don't know if you've ever done this, but sometimes I would listen to a song over and over again and be like, yes, this is how I'm feeling. And then that makes
Definitely.
you feel like someone else is going through it as well, which makes you feel less alone. So that's a way that music has shaped my mental health. But secondly to that was when I was creating music. So it would be a way of like catharsism. So I was just writing to get something out of my body. If I was going through something a bit tough, I would just get my pencil and paper out and get my guitar or a piano and just allow. It usually starts with music, to be honest. So like if I have a feeling, like a sensation in my body, I'll pick up an instrument and allow my fingers to sort of like draw out the sound of what that is. So that then it will start being like a happy song or a sad song. And then lyrics usually flow after that when I really find the sound of how I'm feeling. So in those two ways, music has really impacted my mental health, because I feel it's just using music either to listen to it or to make it completely transforms how I feel about it. And what was the second part to that question?
And been an element of finding your identity.
Yeah, so music helped me find my identity just through like finding sounds that sounded like they did in my body. Like I produce a lot of my own music, so you know, I listen to some sounds and they just don't sound like the inside of my body. Like I quite like hip hop music, but it doesn't sound like me. And I quite like some like heavy metal tracks, but they don't feel like me. So listening to music is like helping me understand the internal universe in my head. So it sort of helped me shape, who I am, my style, the things I write about, the way I am on stage. So yeah.
Perfect. I think it's really interesting to hear both sides as a songwriter and somebody just listening to music and the impact it can have in both ways, definitely.
Yeah, thanks.
You've duetted old videos of your vocals at interviews. What inspired this and how has incorporating the past shaped you?
Yeah, good question. So as a transgender guy who has been making music for like over 10 years, I have lots of old video recordings and audio recordings of my voice pre-transition. And because I'm a transgender guy who's making music, it was really hard for me to make the decision to change my voice in the first place. I knew that like I first had top surgery and then I started testosterone because it for most part, it was my body that I found really hard to live in. But because I was making money and I was making friends and I was making music with my voice, I was quite scared to change it. But I knew that I had to make the decision because being happy every day is more important than just in those moments where I'm singing. So I went through that journey and transitioned. And when I had gone through that, I decided that now that I was going to move forward and be Dylan, I didn't really want anyone to have access to the older version of who I was. I kind of wanted to start again and have everyone meet me as Dylan and know me as Dylan. So I was going to remove all of my old music and all of my old videos and stuff. But it was actually my mum who was like, just wait, like just keep them. Like they are special and you should just hold on to them for a bit longer. And I was like, I don't think so, but I did. And then it was in my transition when I became more like me and I was looking in the mirror every day and seeing like Dylan appear and being so happy that I had arrived. Then I was able to look back at old footage and videos of me and be really grateful for that version of me who like brought me to be this version of who I am now. And now I look back with such compassion at that version of me who was just trying their best to live in this world and who was bold and brave and resilient and overcame the challenges that allowed me to transition. So then, because I have all of the footage and the audio, I felt like, wouldn't it be really cool if I could be both people and make content using both versions of myself? And the point of it would be to show other people that you can embrace any past version of yourself. And when you do, you actually end up liberating yourself even more into being more free. Because when you're hiding stuff, it's like, I'd imagine like this, like a safe behind you, like locked up in chains and it's like tied to your back. You're like carrying the weight of that around. And I think when you just suck it in and you go, no, this is all of me. And like, I've been prouder of different versions of me and I've been happy about different ones, but this one represents me the most. You can just then move forward with this like ease. So I experienced that in my life and I really want other people to experience that kind of freedom. So I started putting them online and sharing them. And I know that not everyone will maybe feel that way because some trans people don't want to look back at their past, which is fine. But I wanted other people to know that it's possible to do that.
It's definitely amazing how you edit the vocals to use them as part of the tracks. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So we use a lot of I use a lot of like vocal like editing techniques that aren't usually processing for vocals, but turning them into ways that like bring the voice up and down, so I can use my old voice and turn it even like into an instrument or something. So it's really fun, and I think like I'm so glad that my mum told me to keep them because yeah, I've been able to make some really cool stuff.
Definitely. What does the importance of self-acceptance and community mean to you?
Self-acceptance and community. Well, I kind of see them as two different things. The importance of self-acceptance is kind of what I just described with that, like the box behind you. I think so I have this public speaking that I do, and within that talk, I give this quote, which is originally by Tina Lifford, but it says, "When you know yourself, you are empowered, but when you accept yourself, you are invincible." And I think it's so true that like if you know who you are, that is really wonderful. But when you like accept it and start owning it, there is nothing that anyone can say to you that can affect you. If you're like, this is who I am, I've accepted exactly who I am. There's nothing you can say to me because I'm already fine with it. And if I'm fine with it, what can you do or say to me? So self-acceptance is one of the first biggest things that I would always try and help someone come to, because then they are almost invincible then. So that's why that's important to me. And then secondly, community, I think, can really help become self-accepting. So, if you find yourself within a community of people who either feel the same or they've had similar experiences, like being part of the LGBTQ plus community and going to something like London Pride, where you're in amongst this crowd of people who have similar stories to you, you then feel so much less alone, and like people out there understand how you're feeling, and you see other people embracing themselves, and it makes you feel like you can do it too. And that can be with anything, like if you're neurodivergent or if you have mental health, how would we say? Like, did we say issues?
Yeah, mental health issues, yeah.
Well, the word I was looking for isn't the word I was looking for. But yes, like if you're neurodivergent, like finding your people, and then you just feel more at peace.
Definitely. You feel part of something and understood, and it helps with the positivity.
Yeah.
Definitely. What message would you give to others transitioning or on a journey of finding themselves?
My message to anyone on a journey who's transitioning or finding themselves would just be to keep going and don't worry about it. And what I mean by that is, don't stop trying to discover yourself. And if you think you're getting it wrong, just like keep going, because you will get there eventually. I think the problem begins when you kind of stop. When you stop trying to find yourself because you're worried about how it might come across, or you're worried that people might see you differently, or you're worried about what you might find out about yourself. But I would just say keep going and don't be scared about, the things you're discovering, because also life is so short, but it's long enough not to worry about the little days where you thought this one thing and then you move on and you think something else. Like, we're all evolving beings all the time. And if you're staying the same, then that's more of a problem, I think. Like, we're all learning every single day. We're becoming new people, and we're shaping ourselves. And I think it's important to know that you can think one thing one day and then the next day sort of have a new version of a thought about it. So just to keep going and know that it always gets better.
Definitely. I think that's such an important message for so many young people, just to kind of accept yourself and just keep growing. Yeah,
I
definitely.
hope
so. I think Tom has the final question now for you.
Ooh, we do. So as part of the Mix 6, Dylan, I don't know if you know, but the sixth and final question is a mystery question suggested by a young person. In fact, we had several questions come through. So we're very much at risk of calling this for Mix 8 at the moment, because we're going to cover very quickly three more questions, if that's okay with you, Dylan.
Fine.
Yeah. Your first mystery question is, what does the moon mean in Dylan and the Moon?
Okay, so the quick answer to that is I just absolutely love the Moon, and I also grew up around a lot of bands like that, like Bob Marley and the Wailers, for example, like bands that had an "and" then, and I just thought it was wicked. Also, I had spent a lot of time in my history being an artist under my actual name. Like Lots Holloway was my name before I transitioned, and before that I was in a band and my name was Charlie Rundle, and it was always very close to my personal life. And this time when I started making music, I wanted it to become like a project that was bigger than me. So naming it something like Dylan and the Moon, like that's my artistic project. But when I come home and I'm making dinner, I'm Dylan Holloway, So it's something that I absolutely love. I love the imagery of it. I love the moon. It's so expansive. So it just has this potential for like undiscovered,
So it could have been any planet, Ben. It could have been Dylan and Jupiter if you had a liking for Jupiter.
Which have been, yeah. It could have been Dylan and the Orange. It could have been many things, but I particularly like the moon.
Yeah. It's got a ring to it. Dylan and the Moon is a lot better than Dylan and Saturn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mystery question number 2. Again, all of these questions have been suggested by young people. And I think it's a very important question around identity. You've covered it a little bit through your chat so far, but if you had to pick, what would be your number one piece of advice around finding an identity?
Okay. Well, if I was someone who was trying to find an identity, I would probably try a few things. I would try on different clothes, and I would do my hair differently, and I would listen to different music. Like I said about listening to sounds and how it felt in my body, I would probably, if you don't actually know who you are, I would try a bunch of different things and see what it feels like when you're being that person, and it will lead you more directly to like who you actually feel like at your core. So yeah, like trying different outfits, trying like go to different places, eat some different stuff, listen to different music, and you will know the ones that you don't like and the ones that you're really drawn to. And then when you feel like you're wearing those clothes, and you're listening to those music, and you're hanging out in those places, you'll probably more likely meet the people who you're going to be friends with, and then you're then learning more about you through just trying different stuff. And don't be afraid to get it wrong. Sometimes you need to get it wrong to get it right.
I love that. It's all about experimenting, exploring, and seeing what works and what doesn't. Final question, final mystery question on the Mix 8 podcast. And it is a great question to end on. So thank you to whoever submitted this. And it is simply, what is the greatest song ever made? Apart from your own.
Oh, yeah. You could see me racking my brains to think about which one of my songs I can say. Good question. It's so hard to answer. Whoever asked me this question, you've stumped me for the first time in this podcast. Wow, that is so tricky. Do you know what? So little story. I was at my friend's wedding the other day, and two of my friends, they're a gay female couple, and it was my first wedding that I've been to of like my best friends. Oh no, getting married, and I heard it's the Elvis song, "Can't Help Falling in Love." Wise men sing, only fools rush in. I can't help falling in love with you. And it's so simple, but it's so good. There's just like a few lines about this person falling in love, and it's like, I can't help falling in love with you. What a great way to describe that feeling, because you just can't help it sometimes. You're just there. But it's so simple, and that's all that needs to be said. And I think the best songs are sometimes the ones that are so simple but most effective. So for today, that's my answer.
For today, we'll ask you tomorrow. There we go. That was the Mix 6. Back over to you, Ella.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast episode. It's lovely having you. And
thank you so much for having me. The questions are great. You guys are wonderful hosting, and I'm sending my love to everyone out there who's listening.